Welcome. I'm Debbie Pokornik, and this lovely lady with me is my wonderful partnerpreneur and the gifted channeler for these gatherings, Susan Hoskins. Since June 7th, 2023, we have been playing in Sweet Tea Channeling. In a recent meeting with our guide Christopher, we were asked to provide some sweet tea treats, sharing some of the nuggets that have been channeled and then heart bouncing how we can live that in Hoomadhi, which is the reality that we are creating right here where we live, right now. Christopher is willing to come in and share more insights on the nuggets when it feels appropriate. So we are quite excited for that. As a result, instead of our usual introduction, this one will be very brief. If this is the first Sweet Tea channeling that you are watching, we encourage you to go back and enjoy at least one of the previous introductions and channelings, especially if you have questions about what we are doing. We have already opened sacred space for this gathering, and we just want to remind you to call in your own spirit guides to assist in pulling out what is most important for you from what comes through. All right, so this next nugget is so powerful. You have been called, and so many others are hearing the call that says, "This is not the truth of my being. I do not wish to live in this. It is not something I can change because it's not part of my creation anymore.
Mm.
Therefore, I'm choosing simply to create a new way of life that works for all."
I love that.
Yes,
It
because that is Hoomadhi.
is Hoomadhi.
So what's coming up for me is that whole idea of I can look at a mountain or whatever from this side, and I
Mhm.
know that's what I'm seeing is this side. Or I can take a few steps or maybe take a helicopter and I can look at it from a totally different perspective and everything changes.
So
So
true.
yes. And that's, I think, what Humadi is saying is you're not leaving here. We already know that part. You are being asked to bring in different energy by seeing things differently. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. And what I'm also hearing from that is that the more we experience what it really feels like to live in this new creation called Humadi, this very real reality, this consciousness right here, right where we are, the less we'll even be able to or even desire to dabble in the creations that are no longer ours. And so, specifically, I can't imagine myself wanting to jump into politics. I can't imagine myself wanting to get caught up in so many of the dramas that we see going on around us because I just have no desire. It's just not the truth anymore of who
Right.
I believe I am. I know who you are, and this new reality. So, in a way, the more we're living this beautiful, I'm going to call it perfection, even though we know that perfection is just where we are in the moment with what we're bringing to it. But the more I dwell here in this, in Humadi, the less I resonate at all with what we could perceive going on around us. Does that make sense? Is that what you're seeing or saying?
Absolutely. I mean, here's what it really comes down to. A lot of the time, we have no idea what's going on in someone else's mind, but they often are mirroring something for us. Sound
Right.
familiar? We've
Oh
had this conversation.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the more I can take that, the more I can see things as a mirror instead of taking them personally as an affront on myself, the more I'm able to live in that space of Hoomadhi, a space that feels loving and accepting and understanding and delightful.
I love it. And the more we live heart to heart and understand that what's so important is the energy we're emitting from our heart that just speaks far more than words. I find it the more I then try to sync my energy when appropriate with another to better understand so that I'm not dealing in conflict or having to be right or any of the other stuff. I love living in this new consciousness and reality we're creating where it's just such a better way to live.
It is. It is. You know, it's interesting. While we were talking throughout this, a dog fight or something has started outside, and it's very loud, and it made it really hard for me to concentrate. And I thought, oh, darn it. Like, maybe I'm going to have to even ask that we stop and we start again in a little while. And now I'm realizing that it was showing me if I chose to, I could allow that chaos to be right there. And I could still center within me and really think about, okay, what is it I want to say about Hoomadhi, or how do I want to be in Hoomadhi?
That is so funny because at the exact moment that's going on with you, my two grandsons are getting into it downstairs in the basement and I could hear them. And it was trying to draw my attention away as well. But it was like, no, I want
Yeah.
to be right here. I don't want to be in that drama, whatever it is.
Yes. So a person listening might go, okay, you're just burying your head in the sand to both of us, right? You're pretending that's not happening, but we're not. We are actually beaming our hearts and going more into our heart to deal with it
Mhm.
than deciding to get upset about it, right?
Right,
To push pause on this recording, go and deal with that in a way that's not necessarily Hamadi like, and then come back and be back in Hamadi.
right, right. Are learning this as we go.
Mhm,
I love how we are learning how to work out the snags of perception between us.
mhm.
And it's really nice. It's really nice. It's so much better than the old way I used to deal with another, where, oh my gosh, I better be able to prove my point and be right. It's a whole different way of, let me go through the hall of mirrors with you, girl, and let's see what we're projecting. Let's see what our heart is saying, and how can we communicate even better.
Yes. Yes. And for me, I often like to use what is it you're teaching me?
Mm.
Like, what are you teaching me about myself in this moment? Right. Because there's just so much to being a human. It's not
Yeah,
an easy task.
it's not.
Yeah.
Not, and we're not perfect. We're evolving. And so I love that because I think we really get to a wonderful place when we're willing to go, okay, what's it showing me about me?
Mhm.
And what do I need to resolve within me? And then what can I do better? Without judgment, without any of that, it's just we're human and we're evolving.
Exactly. And so that word better can sometimes make us feel like, oh, I'm not going to say I'm going to do anything better because I didn't do anything wrong. Right?
Right,
But it's
right,
like, no, no, how do I be the best version of myself? How do I take this information and allow it to really help me to create the best version around me? Like the
right.
best version of the universe, or however you want to say that, you know?
Yeah, and understanding that we all bring to this present moment, to this table, everything we've been before, every
Mm.
experience we've had before, every way we've dealt with things before. But in this moment, yes, I want to feel the trigger and know the trigger when it's triggering something from back there, but I want to do this from my new awareness of just doing it as the best version of me in this moment.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's so true that the moment you do something like maybe react to someone or whatever, you start to create this little groove, right? And
Yeah,
then the more you do it, the easier and easier it is to slip into that groove.
sure.
So the challenge, I think, with what you just said and what Hoomadhi really is figuring out, how do I not go in that groove? How do I skip the record, like Tony Robbins would say,
Yeah.
so that I don't just slip in that groove, but instead can say, wait, I want to deal with this differently.
Oh, I
Than
love that.
yeah, than how
I
I
love it.
used.
And a beautiful example, I think, for both of us, because we've shared that part of the backpack we talk about, the baggage that we brought to the point we were ready to let it go, had to do with not being heard, not being
Yes,
heard
yes.
growing up, not being heard as young adults. And so, I've shared with you, I became a writer because if you read my book, then you're hearing me to the end, if you like it. So we have all that, but then now, instead of automatically going back to I'm not being heard, I can come from a new point of, how can I communicate this more effectively, more lovingly? How can I listen so I make sure you're heard? And
Hmm.
then how can I communicate so that I have a better chance of being heard? Or I open the door and I'm being heard in a way that's not uh, defensive or attacking. I don't know. That's Humadi for me.
Yes, yes, exactly. How do I help them to want to hear what I have to say? And how do I try to understand what it
Sure.
is they're saying in a way that it can help me?
Yeah.
So I want to just read the nugget right after this one because I think it sums it up so
Okay.
perfectly.
Good.
This reality isn't yours anymore. All of you coming together now in whatever way you're participating in this new consciousness with a pure heart, an open mind, and desire to be one, have the power to create the reality that will be every bit as real in your experience in every given moment as this one. I invite you to play with this, to talk about it, to heart bounce what it feels like. The knowingness we want you to walk away with is that this is real and you
Mhm.
can choose to create it.
I felt that one go right
Yeah.
to the heart.
Yes. Well, and I was going to ask you to bring Christopher in and channel. And I thought, "Ah, but this nugget is so perfect. And it is a channeling from Christopher. So
Yeah.
let's just use it."
I love it.
Ready to join us live on these calls? Send us an email at info.hoomadhi, that's HOOMADHI, @gmail.com. We'd love to have you play with us.